Now, Joel, you know, you and I were speaking just the other day about Dan Andrews, and I want you guys to help, you know, throw your thoughts on this. We need to raise up a movement in Victoria. How do we demobilise Dan? That's the first thing. Second thing I want to ask you, there's rumours out that Dan could lose his seat. What's your take on that?
Yeah, look, if Dan, there's two ways you can win the Victorian election. It's looking unlikely that Dan will lose or the Labor Party will lose their majority in the lower house. But there is a very big campaign to target Dan's specific seat of Malgrave. I do believe I'm pronouncing that right. Ian Cook, who is someone who has been on the receiving end of some of Dan Andrews' scorn, is running as an independent. It's a very Teal-esque sort of strategy. He's running as an independent. He doesn't want to tether himself to the Liberal Party. And it's looking like the Liberal Party, this independent, Ian Cook, and a number of the other freedom parties are all partnering up to basically preference each other and get Dan Andrews out. Now, look, if they manage to get him out, that's great. They cut off the head of the snake. But the problem is you'll just get another nameless, faceless Labor person to replace him. And so that's sort of the first strategy people are trying to employ. The other one is the Liberal Party. They're trying to essentially get the majority of the numbers in the lower house and the upper house in order to get legislation passed. I don't think that's going to happen. You know, I'm not going to sell people hopium. I think the Labor Party will come in with a majority, at least in the lower house. And then there's a third school of thought, which is we've got to target the upper house. Now, that's another complicated issue because the way things are looking for the upper house, there's this guy called the Preference Whisperer who runs around making deals between the different parties and selling preferences and seats between the parties. And it's looking like it's going to be a left-leaning upper house. So I don't know what to tell people except that we need to do more in Victoria. And what does that look like? Because, you know, we've all got to do something. Well, all the projects that Turning Point dedicate themselves to, Turning Point Australia, which is the organisation I lead, is to actually educate people and empower them so that they can activate in their community and fix that apathetic problem. The first thing we can do is basically finding your favourite party that you find really represent your values. And if you're not sure which party best represents your values, we've got graphics coming out which show you where they come up on policy, and pick your favourite party. What we want you to do is sign up to them, volunteer your help, and hand out how to vote cards in the 3 weeks before election day. Start having conversations in your community about who you want to see in Parliament and what you want to see from your representatives. And if you're not sure how to preference your how to vote card, that's another thing we're coming out with, where we're doing how to vote cards for the state election of Victoria, where we did this in the federal election and it was hugely successful. We ended up having 250,000 downloads of our how to vote cards, and it helped shift millions of dollars away from the major parties towards more, let's say, freedom parties, conservative parties, politicians that actually have values that they stick to when they vote. Senators like Senator Antic are people that ended up getting elected in the federal election. We saw Ralph Babbitt get up. We saw Pauline Hanson get up. And we saw a lot of lower house MPs retain their seats in the coalition because they were conviction politicians. So it's all about spreading more information around. It's all about giving people the facts, because I trust people to make the right decision if they have all the facts and all the tools. So more to come on that soon, Pat. I've got a couple of new projects which I think will get me banned very soon. But there are things people can do.
That's new for you, Joel, getting yourself in trouble. So let me ask James and Senator Alex, what does, in the scary scenario that this despot gets elected again, what can Victorians and Australia look forward to with a few more years of this evil man in power? Senator James?
Oh, well, Pat, I mean, I think it's hard to know. I mean, some of the stuff we've seen in the last 2.5 years coming out of Victoria has been genuinely, as we've just heard, genuinely world-changing in a sense. And you do worry that some of the stuff that we're seeing in Victoria is kind of leading the way for other countries as well. We're almost showing the way to do it. I know that that's certainly been the case with Jacinda Ardern and her government. I mean, she was the first one, for example, to tack on this methane business. So, you do wonder. You wonder whether or not it's tracking further and wider just by showing other jurisdictions how to do it. What can people do? All they can do is go to the ballot box. I mean, I think that's the first step, and the second step is getting involved in politics. We've been doing a bit of that here in South Australia, and providing an opposition that kind of speaks against these issues is so important as well. I don't know. I mean, I worry about a whole heap of things. We're seeing some changes to the changes that are going to come through many jurisdictions about the manner in which the medical profession relates to its clients and its patients. That's going to become standardised. It's a real worry. This sort of national law in medical registration and that's sort of the sort of stuff that I really am worried about catching on all across the country, and I can't imagine Victoria will be out of that. But we're just seeing some really nasty stuff that's non-COVID related. I mean, look at the conversion therapy laws in Victoria.
Absolutely.
Parents, counsellors, all being criminalised for talking to their kids about their own gender, for goodness sake. I mean, I don't know where this ends. I don't know what other tricks they've got up their sleeve, but people have to understand that when they go to the ballot box, and they need to vote this guy out.
James, your take. Look down your crystal ball, James. What do you see?
Look, listening to Joel, it's quite depressing because I just cannot believe that Victorians, whatever their political stripe, would vote Dan Andrews and Labor back in again, no matter how bad the Liberal Party in Victoria might be, and I think they're pretty bad, but nothing is as bad as Daniel Andrews. If you're a Christian, I mean, the Liberals might be hopeless, but at least they don't hate you. Daniel Andrews and his Labor government are anti-Christian, and I think in answer to your question, what happens if he gets back in? Well, I think the simple answer is that Daniel Andrews is even more embodied. He acts like he can get away with anything. If on the back of that he wins re-election, in spite of everything, then surely he must feel bulletproof, and you can only imagine what he to get away with.
James, can I just qualify what I've said? In the election, it's not specifically that people are voting for Dan Andrews in. It's mainly that people are switching off. Now, let's look at the federal election. We saw the Labor Party get like their lowest primary vote in 100 years, yet they have a majority in their own right in the lower house. Now, in the state of Victoria, since the start of the pandemic, we've seen over 200,000 people leave the state, most likely Conservatives, to just say, I'm out of here. They went to Queensland, they went to New South Wales, some even went overseas. And to make matters worse, look, we've got Victoria, there's a lot of people switching off. Let's take New South Wales for an example. There are 5.6 million eligible voters. The amount of people that actually end up voting and casting a ballot that counts is 4.7 million. So almost 900,000 people are not casting votes in New South Wales, let alone Victoria. So the real problem is you've got about 16% of people not even casting a ballot in New South Wales. How bad is it in Victoria where they just switched off and they just think that the political system is gone? I mean, how many ICACs has this guy dodged? But you can understand if people are getting switched off. So it's not that they're winning the vote. It's that people aren't rocking up. And so I'm really hoping that whatever it is, hatred, trying to take your country back, patriotism, whatever it is, I hope it motivates people, and I hope I'm dead wrong about this election. I really do. But one thing I can guarantee people is that I'm doing, just because I think this is what's going to happen, it's actually motivating me even more to defy the odds. And that's why I'm coming out with 2 old projects that we used on the federal election, which are really effective, and 2 brand new projects, which I'm announcing very soon to weaponize Victorians into electoral, animals. So we'll see what happens.
It's a scary thought because the man his hatred for Christianity is unbelievable. He's apparently rewritten the tenets of faith for the Catholic Church as well. But James, if I could just